Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're undertaking a pretty monumental journey.
We really are. We're getting into something that touches the very boundaries of, life and death.
Exactly. We're talking about the near-death experience or NDEs.
And it's just a phenomenal area of study. I mean, it gets right to the core of consciousness, of existence itself. We've pulled together a huge stack of material for this, but we're really focusing on John Burke's work, Imagine the God of Heaven.
Yeah, that book is something else. He analyzed, what was it, over 1,000 NDEs?
Over 1,000, yeah. And from all over the world, different cultures, different time periods. And the crucial thing to remember, and we'll keep coming back to this, is that he started out as a complete hardened skeptic.
Right, which makes his conclusions all the more powerful. So our mission with this deep dive, really, is to give you a shortcut, a way to get to the heart of these findings without reading a dozen books.
We want to pull out the universal things people report, these consistent descriptions of the divine, this idea of light, of love, of some kind of ultimate purpose.
But it's more than that. We're also going to dig into the evidence Burke presents that, frankly, directly challenges the traditional scientific, materialistic view of what consciousness even is.
That is the crux of it. Look, if you're prepping for a meeting on this or just trying to get up to speed, what you need to know is that these NDEs offer these surprisingly specific, detailed, and consistent facts about consciousness surviving death.
Facts. That's a strong word.
It is, but we're moving beyond just, personal belief or faith. We're looking at testimonial evidence, empirical data that forces you to really reconsider the whole mind-body problem.
Okay, I think that sets the stage perfectly. The sheer volume and consistency of these stories, I mean, that's the foundation of the whole argument, right?
It is. So let's not wait. Let's dive in.
All right, let's start where the source material does, which is with just the sheer global nature of this phenomenon. The main theme is that these NDEs, they're consistent across cultures.
It's not a Western thing. It's not a Christian thing. It's a human thing.
Right. This idea that there's a singular, loving, divine reality. And the light and the love, those are the constants, no matter where you're from or what you were taught to believe.
It is truly astonishing when you see it laid out. Burke's research just meticulously catalogs accounts from people in Asia, Africa, Europe, the Americas, everywhere.
And the common threads cut right through language, culture, religion.
They do. And that right there is a massive challenge, the idea that these are just, hallucinations being filtered through what you already expect to see.
Exactly. If it were just a cultural artifact, you'd expect a Christian to see Jesus, a Hindu to meet Shiva, a Buddhist to see something else entirely.
And sometimes they do use those labels, but the underlying experience is the same. But often they encounter something that completely upends their cultural expectations.
Which is the perfect lead-in to the story of Santosh Acharjee.
Yeah.
It's just so powerful for making this exact point.
It really is. So Santosh was from a traditional Hindu background. He gets incredibly sick, experiences clinical death, and finds himself encountering this vivid, powerful divine light.
And his immediate recognition is that this is God.
Instantly. And it's radiating this overwhelming sense of love, of safety, of purity that he said just completely transformed him in a second.
He also talks about the hyper-reality of it all, which is something you hear over and over in these accounts.
He said, the light was shining on this huge compound, a beautiful compound, and I could see everything far better than I can see normally in this world.
It's like the difference between standard definition and 8K, but for all of reality.
That's a great way to put it. But here's the critical detail, the thing that makes Santosh's story so important for our deep dive.
Go on.
He was shocked, almost troubled, that this being of light, this heavenly realm, it didn't match his Hindu upbringing.
He was looking for the deities he knew.
He was actively searching for them. He expected to see the Hindu pantheon, and he was confused when they weren't there. He realized this being of pure love was something else entirely, something universal.
That cognitive dissonance must have been just immense. He has this entire religious framework built up over a lifetime. And in one instant, his direct personal experience completely transcends it.
It did. He saw that this being was accessible, personal, relational. It wasn't about a specific set of doctrines or rituals he'd learned. It was about this fundamental universal connection.
And he described the realm itself in a lot of detail, right?
He did. He said he was led through what he understood as the kingdom of heaven. He described this magnificent compound, beautiful homes, angels all around. He saw 12 beautiful gates, but they were closed to him. Still, he felt this pull to explore, this sense of ultimate peace.
And then the light spoke to him.
Yes. with this voice that was both, full of authority but also immense, overwhelming love. And it gave him a very clear mission.
Which was?
To go back. To go back and care for his family.
See, that's another one of those patterns, isn't it? This incredibly transcendent, otherworldly experience.
Yeah.
And the takeaway is always so grounded, so practical and relational.
It's never stay here and bask in the glory. It's go back and live differently. Go back and love better.
And the evidence is just so compelling because Santosh isn't some one-off case. The source material just hammers home the consistency, even with people who had, extreme physical challenges.
Right. You look someone like Mario from Africa, completely different culture, same exact report, warm, loving light, total peace, instant knowledge.
Well, the case of Marcia. This one is a real mind-bender.
Marcia was congenitally blind.
From birth, she had never, ever had sight.
And yet, during her NDEs, she reported seeing the warm light, seeing angelic beings, seeing the room.
Which is just, it's almost impossible to explain from a purely materialistic standpoint.
It really is. I mean, if a blind person can see when they're out of their body, then the organ of sight can't just be the physical eye or the brain. It has to be consciousness itself.
It has to be the soul, for lack of a better word.
Exactly. And that's a powerful argument for the reality of these encounters that has nothing to do with religion. It's just data.
So the big takeaway from this section, before you move on, is that the divine encounter seems to be a kind of universal invitation. It's not confined to a specific building or a specific text.
No. The core attributes, the brilliant light, the pure love, the deep peace, that seems to be the shared language of our encounter with whatever lies beyond.
It suggests there's a fundamental unified reality that people from all backgrounds tap into when their consciousness is, for a moment, freed from the body.
A reality rooted in unconditional love.
Okay, so that's the perfect transition. Let's unpack the science of this. We have thousands of these consistent, profound testimonials. The learner in our audience is definitely asking, what does science say? How can this possibly be happening?
And that's where the sources really step into the ring and challenge the dominant scientific paradigm.
Which is materialism.
Right. The foundation of modern neuroscience has, for a long time, been materialism. The idea that consciousness is just stuff the brain does. It's an emergent property of biological hardware.
So if the brain is clinically dead, no oxygen, no electrical activity, a flat EEG,
then there should be nothing. Zero. No consciousness, no experience, and certainly no highly structured, lucid, and verifiable memories being formed.
And this is where Dr. Rajiv Parti's story is so crucial. It's like the perfect bridge from skepticism to something else. What was his deal? What was his standing?
Dr. Parti was the real deal. He was the chief anesthesiologist at a major heart hospital. He was raised Hindu, but was intellectually a man of Western science. He's said himself that he'd long since abandoned belief in gods or an afterlife.
He was a skeptic's skeptic.
Absolutely. And he'd even had a chance to confront an NDE from that perspective before his own. He had a patient who went through a hypothermic cardiac bypass.
Which means they basically chilled the body down and stopped the heart. Clinically dead.
Totally. And the patient comes back and says, "Doc, I was watching you. I was floating up by the ceiling, watching the whole surgery." And he gave details, verifiable details, about tools and conversations.
And what did Dr. Parti do?
He did what any good materialist scientist would do. He dismissed it. He told the patient, your heart was stopped. Your brain had no activity. It was physiologically impossible for you to see anything. He just shut it down.
Based on everything he knew and had been trained on for decades.
But then things changed. Dr. Parti himself had a major surgical complication, a series of them actually, and during one of those procedures, he had his own NDE.
And it changed everything.
It turned his entire worldview upside down. The ultimate irony, right? The chief anesthesiologist, the voice of scientific reason, goes from debunking these stories to having one himself and then sharing it with his very skeptical colleagues.
His personal experience trumped a lifetime of scientific consensus.
It did. And that leads us to what Dr. Jeffrey Long calls the skeptical vacuum.
Okay, what's that?
The idea is this. If materialism could really truly explain NDEs, there'd be one, maybe two, solid, agreed-upon theories.
Like the dying brain releasing chemicals theory or the lack of oxygen theory.
Right. But there aren't one or two theories. There are over 30.
30.
Over 30 competing skeptical explanations. They range from oxygen deprivation to DMT release to temporal lobe seizures, you name it. And the fact that there are so many with no consensus among skeptics is actually evidence that none of them really work.
Because if one of them actually fit all the data, the other 29 wouldn't be necessary.
Precisely. It's a vacuum of a coherent explanation.
So let's get into the hard evidence the source material lays out against those theories, the points that are just game changers. The first one is the simplest: verifiable observations.
This is so critical because it's objective. It's not just I felt loved, it's I saw the nurse in the other room drop a tray of instruments and she was wearing a green headband.
And then they go and check, and it's true.
And it's true. They report conversations happening down the hall or what their family members were doing in the waiting room, all while their body is on a table, clinically dead. Their consciousness is perceiving reality independent of the body.
And the timing is key here, too. The skeptics often say it happens as the brain is coming back online, as oxygen returns.
But that's not what the data shows. The vast majority of these detailed experiences happen during the period of maximum brain compromise, when the heart is stopped, when the EEG is flat.
If it were just a confused brain, it would be chaotic. Random flashes, not a coherent story.
Exactly. The narrative structure is all wrong for a brain chemistry explanation. Which brings us to the next, just killer point of evidence: the blind can see.
We mentioned Marcia, but we really need to emphasize why this is such a huge problem for materialism.
It's maybe the single biggest hurdle for neurologists. You're talking about people who are blind from birth. Their brains have literally never developed the neural pathways to process vision. The hardware isn't there.
Yeah.
And yet, during their NDE, they report vivid, detailed sight. Seeing the light, seeing people, seeing the room they are in.
If the brain is everything, that should be impossible. A non-functional visual cortex should stay non-functional no matter what chemicals are flying around.
It should. The fact that the limitation is removed suggests that consciousness, the soul, has its own way of perceiving, a non-physical sensory system.
The body fails, but the consciousness becomes more lucid.
Which is the third big point: memory retention and heightened lucidity. Again, think about a flat EEG. No measurable activity in the cerebral cortex. By all medical definitions, the brain is offline. It cannot form memories.
But these people come back with the most vivid, detailed, and emotionally powerful memories of their entire lives.
Not just memories, but memories of an experience they describe as being more real, more lucid, more vivid than normal waking life. That's the opposite of what you'd expect from a dying, oxygen-starved brain.
A dying brain should produce fragmented, confusing, dreamlike memories that fade quickly.
Right. These are crystal clear and last a lifetime. So if you put it all together for the listener, you have verifiable, objective observations from outside the body, you have blind people seeing, and you have lucid memories being formed with a non-functioning brain.
The simplest explanation that fits all that data
is that we have a soul, a conscious essence that can exist, perceive, and remember independent of the physical body. It really challenges that core assumption that consciousness is just, as you said, brain juice.
Okay, so that scientific evidence lays the groundwork. We've established the phenomenon is real and hard to explain away. Now let's move into the content of that phenomena. Who or what are people meeting?
And the answer, consistently, is a being of overwhelming, personal, pure, relational love.
And let's be clear, this love is described as something totally different from human love.
Oh, a whole different ballgame. Human love is... Like,
Oh.
it's always conditional, isn't it? It's flawed, it's limited. This is described as a vast healing ocean of pure, total acceptance.
And to really grasp that, we need to look at the story of Dr. Ron Smotherman. He was a psychiatrist, ironically.
Right. He was teaching other people about inner peace and love, but he himself was struggling to really feel it, to connect with God's love. And his NDE came at a moment of just terrifying violence.
His story is awful. He was stabbed repeatedly by his house sitter.
Just a brutal, horrific attack. He's lying there bleeding out, close to death, and suddenly this powerful light just manifests in the room.
He didn't just see it, right? He felt it was a person.
He described it as a living being that embodied infinite love, infinite knowledge, and that this is a key word, infinite purity.
And this is all happening while his body is in extreme trauma.
But his consciousness was filled with what he called unexplainable joy and ecstasy, instantly. He was able to just know, to download these 9 qualities of God: infinite love, knowledge, power, authority, humor, kindness, joy, purity, and humility.
It's interesting how that list mixes the all-powerful with the deeply personal. Power and authority sit right next to kindness and humor.
Exactly. And that experience solidified for him this idea that God's love is different from ours because it's pure. It's not transactional. It's not possessive.
And this understanding led him directly to a huge theological concept.
Free will.
How did he connect the two?
In that moment of complete knowing, he understood that for love to be real, it has to be a choice. Love must be free to choose, he said.
If we were just robots programmed to love God, the love would be meaningless.
Exact. So the potential for separation, for rebellion, for what we call sin, that has to exist. It's a necessary precondition for genuine, conscious, chosen connection. Without the choice to say no, the choice to say yes isn't real.
That makes so much sense. And so these NDEs become these powerful testimonials for people who have struggled with self-worth, with guilt, with feeling unlovable.
There's a quote in the source material that just nails it. There is nothing you could do that could ever change the way God feels about you. For someone to experience that directly, it's the ultimate healing. To be fully known and fully loved at the same time.
And this divine love then flows into what the sources call passionate compassion. It's not just a passive feeling, it's active.
Right. And people struggle to describe it, so they use these very human, relatable metaphors. God is described as a compassionate parent.
With that fierce, protective, nurturing instinct.
Or as an intimate friend. Someone who knows all your secrets, all your flaws, and loves you anyway, stays with you in your darkest moments.
And even, which is maybe the most intense, as a passionate lover. Desiring this deep, profound union.
All of these are relational terms, right? Parent, friend, lover. It all points to a God who actively wants to be in relationship with us.
Let's bring it back to Santosh Acharjee for a moment. The Hindu man. We said he was sent back with a mission with 5 instructions.
Yes. And now that we're talking about compassion, we can see how those instructions are the roadmap for living it out.
Let's hear them again.
They were incredibly practical. Number 1, love your family and children. 2, always tell the truth. 3, commit no more sins. 4, surrender completely to God. And 5, be generous and kind to the poor.
What's so striking about that list is how simple and relational it is. It's not about complex theology or rituals. It's about how you treat people.
It's the core of ethics, really. Truth, family, humility, generosity. It reinforces that this divine being is fundamentally concerned with the integrity of our relationships and how we care for the vulnerable.
And for Santosh, that instruction to surrender to God actually led him on a new spiritual path, didn't it?
It did. It led him to investigate Jesus, whom he came to see as the fulfillment of that path to the kingdom of heaven he'd witnessed.
So the message is clear. The most profound spiritual experience imaginable results in the most practical, loving, down-to-earth actions. That's the proof.
That's the transformation.
Okay, so this divine light brings this overwhelming comfort and love. But there's also the life review. People are shown their lives, and they have to confront the choices they made.
Right. The moments of cruelty, the moments of selfishness.
Which brings up a huge question. How did these experiences balance that kind of accountability and justice with this message of total forgiveness?
And this is where the source material introduces the concept of redemptive justice. The idea is that true justice can't just ignore wrongdoing. Sin, which is that separation from love, has real consequences, but God's goal isn't punishment. It's restoration.
And the story of the Melanie it's a very difficult but powerful example of this. She was abused as a child.
Horrifically abused at age 7. But in that moment of trauma, she had an experience of Jesus being with her.
He intervened.
Spiritually, yes. She felt this immediate sense of safety, of a protective presence, shielding her mind and soul from the horror her body was enduring. It shows that the divine is present even in our absolute worst moments.
But the question of justice remains. If God is all-loving, why does this happen? The sources acknowledge that God's love actually demands justice. There is a moral law, and the consequence of breaking it, of sin, is separation or death.
But Melanie's story shows what redemptive justice looks like. Years later, after her NDE, she didn't just get over the trauma, she transformed it. She eventually found a way to forgive the man who abused her, Roger.
That's almost superhuman. What was her motivation?
It's incredible. She said she hoped he would be set free of the evil that harmed her. Her focus wasn't on him getting punished, but on him being healed and restored.
So it's a justice that aims to liberate both the victim and the perpetrator from the cycle of evil.
Exactly. It's about restoration, not just retribution. And the source material explicitly connects this to the Christian understanding of Jesus. as the one who embodies both perfect justice and perfect love, fulfilling the law's demands through his own sacrifice to offer reconciliation to everyone.
It shifts the whole model of judgment. It's not about us trying to be good enough to earn our way in.
No, it's about an offer being made. The NDEs encounter a being who has already solved the justice problem and is now just offering love and mercy.
Which brings us back to Dr. Rajiv Parti, the skeptic. When his consciousness left his body, he didn't go straight to the light, did he?
He did not. His first stop was what the source calls a hellish realm, a place of shadows and suffering.
But this wasn't an external punishment, right? It was more internal.
That's the key. It was an intense, direct encounter with his own conscience. He was forced to face the fact that he had lived a very loveless life.
What did he see?
His pride, his materialism, his arrogance, especially how he treated his patients like they were just medical puzzles, not suffering human beings. He felt this crushing shame and condemnation.
But it was coming from inside him.
It was his own guilt, projected, and in that moment of absolute despair, he prayed. He begged for a second chance. And that's when the pivot happened.
His deceased father appeared.
Yes, as a guide, to lead him out of the darkness and toward the light being.
And the message he got from that light was just... It's the core of this whole section on forgiveness.
It is. The light gave him a full life review, so he understood the impact of his actions. But at the same time, it just wrapped him in this unconditional love and said explicitly, "You're forgiven. I'm not against you. I'm for you."
Wow.
And then he was told to go back. Go back and use his second chance to live a life of love and compassion.
So that really encapsulates it. God desires reconciliation, not condemnation. Guilt and fear are replaced with this opportunity for a total reset, a complete transformation.
The message is that redemption is available to anyone, no matter what they've done. You just have to accept the grace that's being offered.
Okay, this is where it gets, for me, really interesting. We're moving beyond ethics and science into pure metaphysics.
Into the deep mysteries.
Because these NDE accounts have people coming back with this immediate, downloaded understanding of theological concepts that philosophers have debated for thousands of years.
Right. It's like they're temporarily tapping into a higher dimension of consciousness, a level of comprehension that's just not available to us in our day-to-day linear reality.
Let's start with the triune paradox, the Trinity: Father, Son, Holy Spirit, 3 in 1.
A concept that logically makes no sense to the human mind.
And for this, we have the story of Heidi. Tell us about her background.
Heidi was raised by an atheist father, and her family heritage was Jewish. So she had zero religious or intellectual framework for the Christian concept of a Trinity. It just wasn't part of her world.
And yet, in her NDE,
she instantly understood it. She encountered God as this undifferentiated unity that contained all life, all love, all power. And she just knew that the Father, Son, and Spirit were three distinct persons who were also simultaneously one single entity.
And she didn't even have to ask.
No, she said, "I hadn't asked any questions. I simply became aware that I knew the answers." Everything just made perfect, logical sense in that state.
So how do we even begin to wrap our three-dimensional brains around that?
The source material uses the flatland analogy, which is really helpful. Imagine a two-dimensional being living on a sheet of paper. They only know length and width.
Okay.
If a three-dimensional sphere were to pass through their 2D world, what would they see?
They'd see a point up here that would become a circle that grows, then shrinks, then disappears into a point again.
Exactly. They would perceive a sequence of separate, distinct shapes. But the reality is that it was always just one single object, the sphere.
So our consciousness is like the Flatlanders. We're stuck in 3 dimensions plus time.
And the mystery of the Trinity might just be a dimensional one. In a higher dimension, the separation we perceive disappears. The three are one. The paradox is only a paradox from our limited perspective.
That actually helps a lot. And this profound knowledge seems to change people's entire attitude. Crystal McVeigh's story about worship is fascinating.
Yes, Crystal had a very traumatic childhood and was angry with God for a long time. But in her NDE, she understood that worship isn't some chore. It's not a formal duty.
What is it then?
It's a spontaneous, joyful, irresistible expression of love. She said she was just compelled to praise God, not from obligation, but from this overwhelming feeling of gratitude